little one. Join us!
Have you ever experienced an indescribable sense of pressure while walking alone down a dark path at night, as if something massive and invisible were suddenly looming over you from the sky? It might simply be a trick of the mind, or perhaps a fleeting illusion brought on by the profound silence of the night. However, it is also possible that it is the work of a monstrosity that has been feared and passed down since ancient times, from the dusty archives of the Edo period to the eerie urban legends of the modern era. There exists a strange entity known as the Nobusuma, whose presence is whispered about with persistent and vivid detail. At first glance, its form is said to resemble a giant flying squirrel, or a bat tearing through the veil of night. But its nature is far too alien, and its cruelty is enough to freeze one's spine. What do we truly know about the identity of this monster, which is said to glide through the darkness, covering the faces of its human targets, so perfectly that there is no escape, and snatching away their lives without a sound? Even in the modern Reiwa era, where the light of science seems to have reached every corner and driven out mystery, eyewitness accounts of unexplainable flying creatures continue to emerge from all over the country. From the days when people feared darkness itself to the modern city streets illuminated by LEDs, they have certainly continued to exist. This time we will delve deep into the full picture of the Nobusuma, which was nearly buried in the depths of history, as well as the latest eyewitness information and the unimaginable, shocking facts hidden behind them. After listening to this story to the end, you will find yourself unconsciously looking up at the sky and worrying about the shadows behind you as you walk at night. Now, let us open the forbidden door that should never have been stepped through. During the Edo period, a time when night was much deeper than it is today, and people spent their anxious hours relying only on the faint light of lanterns, the existence of the Nobusuma was recognized not as a mere fairy tale, but as a realistic threat directly linked to death. In old books such as the Wakan-sansai Zue, an encyclopedia compiled by Terajima Ryoan, it is described in detail as a giant flying squirrel that has accumulated magical power over many years and transformed into a terrifying yokai. However, to dismiss this as a mere misidentification of a wild animal, or a delusion born of an ignorant era, would be to ignore the descriptions left behind, which are far too specific and raw. According to records from that time, when the Nobusuma glided through the night sky, it was said that sparks were violently scattered from its body. The sight of what looked like a living fireball trailing through the pitch-black sky, both horrific and fantastical, plunged the villages of that time into the depths of terror. This suggests that it possessed a supernatural energy that cannot be explained at all by the term bioluminescence. Furthermore, its range of activity was not limited to mountainous areas, where trees grew thick and lush. It was said that its figure was frequently witnessed, even on the outskirts of the town of Ado, in back alleys, where human traffic had ceased, and under the eaves of deserted temples. The hunting method of the Nobusuma is extremely cold-blooded. For a human it has marked as prey, it approaches from behind like a grim reaper, without making any sound of flapping wings. Then it spreads its massive leather-textured wings, large enough to easily wrap around a human head, and completely seals the victim's face. Deprived of sight, and with their breathing blocked, the victims struggle in intense fear in the darkness, eventually losing their strength and dying. It is recorded that the bodies of the victims discovered later had faces that had turned an unnatural shade of purple, with countless scratches from sharp talons carved into them as if to engrave a deep-seated grudge. Have you ever heard an unnatural sound of the wind in a late-night forest or park, even though there was no breeze? Perhaps it was the moment and hungry? Nobusuma flapped its wings behind you in search of prey. Further investigation reveals the true nature of the fear felt by people of that time. In the psychological structure of the Edo period, threats coming from the sky were akin to unavoidable divine punishment. While beasts walking on the ground could be kept out by fences or gates, such defenses were meaningless against the Nobusuma dancing in the sky. This sense of despair made the legend of the Nobusuma even more robust. Furthermore, experts point out the possibility that the description of the Nobusuma, scattering sparks, was not just a visual effect, but that it possessed a unique constitution that reacted with static electricity caused by friction, or perhaps unknown components in the atmosphere. The most inexplicable point in the ecology of the Nobusuma, and one that deviates from biological common sense, is its abnormal obsession. According to legend, once a Nobusuma remembers the scent of prey, it never forgets it, and is said to pursue it relentlessly, even if it is many miles away. In particular, it chooses the cunning method of extinguishing the lantern light, held by a person walking alone at night, with a gust-like flap of its wings creating complete darkness before attacking. This planned behavior makes one feel not just a mere predatory instinct, but a high level of intelligence or even something close to malice. One folkloric theory suggests that the Nobusuma prefers to inhale human breath, and the act of covering the face is considered not only to suffocate the victim, but also to efficiently ingest the final energy leaking from the lungs. This may be an act closer to stealing a part of the soul, rather than mere nutritional intake. There are also scattered records that the hair of the Nobusuma is extremely stiff and sharp like needles or razors. From a modern biological perspective, it is impossible for common giant flying squirrels, or flying squirrels, to undergo such aggressive evolution, that their fur can cut through skin even over clothing. However, some experts seriously suggest the possibility that they are an unknown, mutant species left behind from the lineage of evolution. In the depths of remote mountains and valleys, or perhaps an undiscovered large-sized chiroptera that is, a giant bat. Where on earth do they come from and where do they hide while the sunlight shines? Are they hanging upside down from the beams of old storehouses or the ceilings of unexplored limestone caves, quietly waiting for the night to visit again? If you are walking at night and suddenly experience an unexplained malfunction, where the light of your smartphone goes out, or if the street lights completely fall silent after starting to flicker, it is not a failure of the electrical system. Please run away from that spot immediately and take refuge in a place with a roof. It is the signal that the Nobusuma's hunt is about to begin. Let us analyze the behavior of the Nobusuma. From the perspective of behavioral economics, the Nobusuma takes an extremely rational risk avoidance action, selectively targeting isolated subjects who can be caught with certainty, rather than engaging in uncertain hunting. For them, the act of extinguishing the lantern light is a sophisticated strategy to deprive the opponent of their ability to counterattack and maximize their own success rate. Can a creature capable of such high-level judgment really be called just a wild animal? The legends of the Nobusuma pass down in the Shikoku region, such as Kochi and Tokushima prefectures, where steep mountains stretch out, carry an even more specific and unavoidable terror. In these regions, the Nobusuma is sometimes called by the alias Masari, and the characteristic of clinging to the victim's face is passed down. Along with the fear, what is interesting is that practical methods for repelling the Nobusuma were established in the villages of that time. According to legend, if one felt an ominous presence and was about to be attacked by a Nobusuma, it was said to be effective to hold sharp blades, such as sickles or machetes, above one's head to threaten the sky. Alternatively, it was said that the approach could be blocked by chanting, a spell consisting of specific syllables. This eloquently tells us that for the people of that time, the Nobusuma was not a mere product of the imagination or a tool for putting children to sleep, but a real threat that could result in death if appropriate measures were not taken. Furthermore, there is a terrifying theory regarding the growth of the Nobusuma. It is said that if a Nobusuma survives for many hundreds of years and gains further magical power, it evolves into an even more powerful and massive yokai called the Nodepo. The Nodepo is said to have even more massive wings than the Nobusuma, and possesses such overwhelming power and mass that it no longer just covers the face, but can swallow a human whole. Among hunters who live in the mountains and know the true face of the night mountains, even now, when walking through the night mountains that have become unnaturally silent to the point of pain, there are those who sense the cold-blooded presence of the Nobusuma, looking down from the gaps in the trees and unconsciously release the safety of their rifles. These hunters believe more in the wrath of the mountain or the presence of the abnormal felt with their skin than in scientific evidence. According to the story of one old hunter, when a Nobusuma is nearby, the night air feels strangely lukewarm, and a foul odor like burnt animal fat wafts through. The moment that smell hits your nose, you must not look up. If you look up, what spreads there is not the starry sky, but the belly of the Nobusuma trying to swallow you. Is there an old legend in your area about monsters that fly in the sky or terrifying entities lurking in the night sky? It might be the Nobusuma in a different form. Eyewitness accounts of the Nobusuma in modern times continue to live on in the distortions of modern society, having changed their form. A few years ago, a group of college students driving late at night in a mountainous area without streetlights reported a bizarre experience. While driving, they said a massive black something, large enough to cover the entire windshield of the car, slammed into them from above as if it were being thrown. Even though the driver moved the wipers at maximum speed in a panic, the object stuck to the glass like a suction cup, and along with a violent sound of flapping wings, an unbearable animal odor filled the car. Eventually, the object melted into the darkness of the night as if nothing had happened. But when they stopped the car in a safe place to check, they found countless fine scratches and a sticky, mysterious liquid clinging to the tempered glass. The local police investigation concluded it was a collision with a large bird of prey, but the old man from the area who was present reportedly warned with a pale face, "That's the work of a Nobusuma. Never pass through that road again." In this way, even with modern high technology, phenomena that cannot be explained within the framework of science exist in abundance right next to us. There are unidentified shadows captured in the noise-filled footage of dash cams and flying objects, performing high-speed movements as if ignoring the laws of physics captured by high-sensitivity surveillance cameras. Among these, there is a very high possibility that the entities people once feared as Nobusuma are included, adapted to their modern surroundings. Furthermore, eyewitness accounts in urban areas cannot be ignored. There are testimonies of something gliding like a paraglider from the rooftops of skyscrapers, brushing over the heads of people walking in parks late at night. The witness said, "It was too big for a bat, and the sound of the wings was too realistic for a plane." Isn't this evidence that the Nobusuma is no longer an entity only of mountainous areas, but is also developing the concrete jungle as its own hunting ground? Around you, have you ever heard a story about seeing an unexplained shadow or felt a gaze as if someone were looking down on you on a night road? What is considered to have a deep connection with the Nobusuma are the legends of fireballs and mysterious fires scattered throughout various parts of Japan. The classical characteristic of the Nobusuma scattering sparks while gliding suggests, from a modern scientific perspective, the possibility of plasma, which is an ionization phenomenon in the atmosphere, or perhaps an unknown bioluminescent organism with light organs incomparably more powerful than those of a firefly. Certainly, interpretations such as bioluminescence caused by static electricity or for visually luring prey seem reasonable at first glance. However, there are many eyewitness accounts of light movements that seem to have a will of their own, which cannot be explained by that alone. One radical unidentified creature researcher speculates that the true identity of the Nobusuma is a descendant of pterosaurs that secretly survived from the Cretaceous period, or a type of giant bat, and that it accumulates a large amount of scales containing special components on the surface of its wings. This is a physical theory that these scales rapidly oxidize and ignite due to friction with the air during high-speed gliding, appearing to those on the ground like an eerie fireball dancing in the night sky. However, even with this theory, it is impossible to fully explain the abnormal obsession with the prey, such as the fixation on human breath and the relentless targeting of the face. The Nobusuma may be an inseparable combination of a physical biological aspect and a spiritual aspect in which resentment and fear are embodied. From a metaphysical approach or a Jungian psychological perspective, the idea that the Nobusuma is a materialization of the primal fear of darkness, sleeping in people's subconscious under certain conditions, is also plausible. In other words, as long as people fear the Nobusuma and continue to believe in its existence, it will be born again and again from the darkness. Do you think that a yokai is an undiscovered creature with an anatomically possible body, or a phenomenon created by strong human thoughts distorting space? The answer is known only to the shadow still dancing above your head. Even more surprisingly, legends similar to the Nobusuma are widely distributed beyond the boundaries of Japan, even overseas. For example, a monster called the Manananggal, passed down in the Philippines and other parts of Southeast Asia, shares very interesting commonalities. The Manananggal is said to detach its own upper body at night, fly around with massive bat-like wings, and suck the breath of sleeping humans or devour their internal organs. The act of the Nobusuma covering a face to suck in breath, and the ecology of the Manananggal. In these, an eerie coincidence can be found, ignoring geographical distances. Perhaps in ancient times, there existed a common top predator that ruled the night skies of the entire Asian region. It is said to have gone extinct from the main stage due to large-scale climate change or the advancement of humanity. But perhaps a few individuals are surviving unnoticed in modern frontiers or the blind spots of cities. Due to the dramatic improvement in gene analysis technology in recent years, examples of new species of large mammals being discovered in the deep sea or dense forests that have DNA extremely close to species previously considered imaginary creatures are too numerous to mention. The day when the true identity of the Nobusuma is completely illuminated by the sharp light of modern science, and its taxonomic position is determined may not be that far off. However, just because its identity is revealed does not mean the instinctive fear associated with its existence will disappear. Rather, when the fact that a monster previously thought to be a fantasy actually has muscles and bones and is flying in the sky, even at this very moment is proven, humanity may experience panic in its true sense. Imagine it, the day when the headline "Nobusuma existence confirmed" dances on the cover of a science magazine and its anatomical diagrams are released. It might mean the end of the safe world we have built. Among the records concerning the Nobusuma, one of the most inexplicable incidents that deepens the biological mystery is the massacre of livestock chickens in one night that occurred in an isolated village during the Meiji period. Although the chickens in that village were kept in sturdy chicken coops, all of them became silent corpses within a single night. What was shocking was the cause of death. All the chickens had their neck bones accurately broken and their heads severely damaged. But there was almost no sign of their meat or internal organs being eaten. It was as if the slaughter were carried out not for eating, but solely for the purpose of taking life itself. Around the chicken coop, eerie marks were left in the damp soil, as if something had landed with its massive wings spread, and the wingspan was estimated to have easily exceeded 3 meters. The local official of the time who investigated this gruesome incident concluded that it was a crime committed by an unknown bird of prey that had flown from above, or perhaps a type of Nobusuma heard of in legend, and urged the villagers to be strictly on their guard. That cruelty, which ignores the basic biological principle of predation and makes one feel a pure malice or even some kind of ritualistic intent, resonates with the hostility toward humans consistently found in the legends of the Nobusuma. If the Nobusuma is still flying soundlessly above our heads, in the shadows of skyscrapers or between the clouds, what on earth are they seeking as they look down upon this noisy ground? It seems to me that they are seeking not just to satisfy a mere hunger, but something deeper and darker. The hypothesis even emerges that they are harvesting the primitive emotion of fear that humans have lost in the process of building civilization. What do you think about the abnormal behavior of animals in nature, taking other lives ruthlessly without any reason for food? As the final stage of the story, we must touch upon the unavoidable reality we are facing right now. Due to rapid climate change and unplanned environmental development in recent years, sanctuaries protected by deep mountains have been destroyed, and unknown creatures that made them their homes are being forced to expand their spheres of activity to human settlements and even large cities. Along with this, eyewitness information of the Nobusuma is being reported with a frequency and specificity never seen before. Blurred and unclear videos and photos flowing through SNS timelines. Among them are recorded strange shadows showing alien movements that are clearly not existing birds, drones, or even aircraft. They rest their wings in the shadows of utility poles in residential areas, or stand on the edges of the rooftops of skyscrapers late at night, observing the ground with cold gazes as if looking for defenseless prey. The terror that the people of Edo once held, enough to prevent them from sleeping soundly, is by no means a weathered relic of the past. Rather, because true darkness has been lost and we are complacent in artificial light, the existence of the Nobusuma, lurking in the slight shadows of buildings and the blind spots of streetlights, becomes a sharper and more inescapable fear that pierces our throats. Next time you stop by a convenience store on your way home from work late at night, and happen to pass through an unnaturally dark place where the light of the streetlights does not reach, I have a request. Please pay attention not only to your feet as you stare at your smartphone screen, but also to the bottomless darkness of the sky spreading directly above you. There, as it waits impatiently for you to notice, the Nobusuma, which has certainly spread its massive wings without a sound, may have already begun its quiet descent to suck away your final breath. How was it? The true identity of the Nobusuma, which has been engraved in the deep psyche of the Japanese people, and passed down since ancient times, and the chain of terror that continues unabated into the modern age. To laugh this off as a mere misidentification of a giant flying squirrel or a superstition of an old era is impossible given the numerous and specific testimonies that have accumulated across the ages. No matter how much science advances, and no matter how much we overconfidently believe we are the lords of all creation, it is utterly impossible to solve all the mysteries of this vast world and place them under our control. Rather, there may be truths that are happier for the human spirit if left unrevealed, remaining in the darkness as existences beyond our understanding. The Nobusuma will surely be dancing through some night sky tonight, as well, along with eerie sparks when we have fallen asleep, circling in search of its next prey. Until those wings cover your face, you cannot notice its presence. If you found this story interesting or felt a spine-chilling experience, please subscribe to the channel and give us a high rating. Also, if there are stories of unidentified creatures similar to the Nobusuma passed down in the area where you live, or if you yourself have had an unexplainable mysterious experience on a night road, please write the details in the comment section. Your precious experiences may be the only key to unraveling the next mystery hidden in the darkness. Now please check the locks on your windows even more carefully than usual tonight, block out the gaze from the sky, and please have a quiet night. I will see you in the next video.